Chapter 14. I get to Friday morning without any major calamities. At least none that the Geisers know about. There was a vegetable risotto disaster on Tuesday, but thank goodness I managed to get a last-minute substitute from the caterers. There was a peach camisole that, in hindsight, should have been ironed on a lower setting. There was the Dartington vase that I broke while trying to dust with a vacuum cleaner attachment, but no one seems to have noticed it's gone yet, and the new one should arrive tomorrow. So far, this week has cost me only 200 pounds, which is a vast improvement on last week. I may even start making a profit before too long. I'm putting Eddie's damp underwear in the dryer, averting my eyes as best I can, when I hear Trish calling me. "Samantha, where are you?" She doesn't sound pleased. What's she discovered? "I can't have you walking around like that anymore." Trish arrives at the door of the utility room, shaking her head vigorously. "I'm sorry," I peer at her. "Your hair?" She makes a face. "Oh, right." I touch the beach patch with a grimace. "I meant to get it done at the weekend." "You're having it done now." She cuts across me. "My super hairdresser's here." "No?" I stare at her. "But I've got vacuuming to do." "I'm not having you walk around like a fright anymore. You can make up the hours later. Come on. Annabelle's waiting." I guess I have no choice. I dump the rest of Eddie's underpants in the dryer, switch it on, and follow her up the stairs. "Now, I've been meaning to mention my cashmere cardigan," Trish adds sternly as we reach the top. "The cream one." Shit. She's found out I replaced it. Of course she has. I should have known she couldn't be that stupid. "I don't know what you've done to it." Trish pushes open her bedroom door, but it looks marvelous. That little ink stain on the hem has completely disappeared. It's like new. Right. I give a smile of relief. Well, all part of the service. I follow Trish into the bedroom where a thin woman with big blonde hair, white jeans, and a gold chain belt is setting up a chair in the middle of the floor. "Hello." She looks up, cigarette in hand, and I realize that she's about 60 years old. "Samantha, I've heard all about you." Her voice is gravelly, her mouth is pursed with lines, and her makeup looks like it's been welded to her skin. She comes forward, surveys my hair, and winces. "What's all this? Thought you'd try the streaky look." She gives a raucous laugh at her own joke. "It was a bleach accident." "Accident?" She runs her fingers through my hair, tisking all the while. "Well, it can't stay this color. We'd better go a nice blonde. You don't mind going blonde, do you, dear?" "Blonde?" "I've never been blonde," I say in alarm. "I'm not really sure." "You've got the coloring for it." She's brushing my hair out. "Well, as long as it's not too blonde," I say hurriedly. "Not, that fake, tardy, platinum blonde." I trail off as I realize that the other two women in the room have fake, tardy, platinum blonde hair. Or, I swallow. Whatever you think, really. I sit down on the chair, wrap a towel around my shoulders, and try not to flinch, as Annabelle briskly pastes some chemical-smelling goo in my head and layers in what feels like 1,000 bits of silver foil. Blonde, yellow hair, Barbie dolls. Oh gosh, what am I doing? "I think this was a mistake," I say abruptly, trying to get out of my chair. "I don't think I'm a natural blonde." "Relax." Annabelle clamps down on my shoulders, forcing me back into my seat, and puts a magazine in my hand. Behind, Trish is opening a bottle of champagne. "You look lovely. Pretty girl like you should do something with her hair. Now, read us our signs." "Signs?" I say in bewilderment. "Horoscopes," Annabelle tisks again. "Not the brightest penny, is she?" she adds in an undertone to Trish. "She is a little dim," Trish murmurs back discreetly, "but marvelous at laundry." "So this is what being a lady of leisure is like, sitting with foil in your hair, drinking Buck's Fizz, and reading glossy magazines." I haven't read any magazines except The Lawyer since I was about 13. Normally I spend my hairdresser's appointments typing emails or reading contracts, but I simply can't relax. By the time Annabelle is blow-drying my hair, my entire body is seized up in fear. I can't be blonde. It's just not who I am. There we are. Annabelle gives a final blast and switches the hairdryer off. There's silence. I can't open my eyes. Much better, Trish says approvingly. I slowly open one eye, then the other. My hair isn't blonde. It's caramel. It's warm caramel with streaks of honey and the tiniest threads of gold. As I move my head, it shimmers. I think I might cry. You didn't believe me, did you? Annabelle raises her eyebrows at me in the mirror, a satisfied smile at her lips. Thought I didn't know what I was doing? She can so obviously read my mind, I feel abashed. It's wonderful, I say, finding my voice. Thank you so much. I'm entranced by my reflection, by my new, glowing caramel honey self. I look alive. I look colorful. I'm never going back to the way I looked before. Never. My pleasure doesn't fade. Even when I've gone downstairs again and I'm pushing the Hoover around the drawing room, I'm totally preoccupied by my new hair. As I pass any shiny surface, I stop to admire myself and flick up my hair so it cascades back down in a caramelly shower. Vacuum under the rug, flick. Vacuum under the coffee table, flick, flick. It never even occurred to me to dye my hair before. What else have I been missing out on? Samantha. I look up to see Eddie coming into the room wearing a navy jacket and tie. I'm having a meeting in the dining room. I'd like you to make some coffee and bring it in to my guests. Yes, sir. I curtsy. How many of you are there? 4 altogether, and some biscuits, snacks, whatever. Of course. He didn't even notice my hair. In fact, he looks hyped up and red in the face. I wonder what this meeting is. As I head to the kitchen, I glance curiously out the front window and see an unfamiliar red Mercedes Series 5 parked in the drive next to a silver convertible BMW and a dark green Rover. Probably not the local vicar then. Maybe it's something to do with his company. I make a pot of coffee, put it on a tray, add a plate of biscuits and some muffins I bought for tea. Then I head to the dining room and knock. Come in. I push the door open to see Eddie sitting with 4 men in suits around the dining room table, each with a thick open file before him. Sitting beside Eddie is a plumpish man in a soft brown jacket and horn-rimmed glasses. Directly opposite him is a guy with chiseled, good-looking features wearing an expensive-looking suit. So just a few amendments, the chiseled man is saying as I approach the table. Nothing that should concern anyone. Your coffee, I murmur in deferential tones. Thank you, Samantha. Eddie looks puffed up like the lord of the manor. If you could serve it out. I put the tray down on the sideboard and distribute the cups among the men. As I'm doing so, I can't help glancing at the papers on the table and immediately recognize them as contracts. Black or white? White or black? I say to a burly, red-haired guy in a blazer. White, thanks. He doesn't even acknowledge me. While I pour the coffee, I have another casual look. Looks like some kind of property investment deal. Is Eddie sinking his money into something? Biscuit, I offer. I'm sweet enough. The red-haired man bares his teeth in a grin. What an asshole. So, Eddie, you understand that point now? The chiseled-looking man is speaking, his voice dripping with concern. I recognize this man, not his face, but I know him. I worked with people like this for 7 years, and I know instinctively that this man doesn't care 2 jots whether Eddie understands. Yes, says Eddie, yes, of course. He peers at the contract uncertainly, then looks at the man in the brown jacket next to him. Martin? Let's just have a look, replies Martin. He starts perusing the document, nodding every so often. I guess he must be Eddie's lawyer. We're as concerned about security as you are, says the chiseled man with a smile. When it comes to money, who isn't? Quips the red-haired guy. Okay, what exactly is going on here? Why am I suspicious? As I move around to the chiseled-looking man and pour his coffee, the contract is clearly visible, and I run my eyes down it with a practice speed. It's a property development partnership. Both sides putting up money, residential development, so far so standard. Looks fine. I pour out coffee for the next guy and have another quick scan just to be sure. And then I see something that makes me freeze in shock. A carefully worded, innocuous-looking little clause at the bottom of the page that commits Eddie to funding any shortfall in one line, with no reciprocity. If things go wrong, Eddie has to foot the bill. Does he realize? Does his lawyer realize? I'm totally aghast. My urge to reach for the contract and rip it up is almost overpowering. If this were at Carter Spank, these guys would not last 2 minutes. Not only would I throw their contract out, but I would recommend to my client that Samantha... I jerked back to reality to see Eddie frowning slightly at me. Could you please serve Martin? I'm not at Carter Spank. I'm in a housekeeper's uniform, and I have refreshments to serve. I move around the table and pour out coffee for Martin, who is reading through the contract with not one sign of alarm. Hasn't he seen the clause? Chocolate biscuit? I offer him the plate. Or a muffin? His fleshy face lights up. Now, let me see. They all look so good. His hand hovers over the plate. I don't believe this. He's paying more attention to the muffins than he is to the contract. What kind of lawyer is this guy? So, enough talk. The adventure begins. Mr. Chiseled is unscrewing the lid of a smart pen. Ready? He hands it to Eddie. He's about to sign. Now? Everything okay by you? Says Eddie to Martin, whose mouth is now stuffed full of muffin. Take your time, Mr. Chiseled adds with a perfect smile, if you'd like to read it through again. I feel a surge of sudden fury at these guys with their flash cars and sharp suits and smooth voices. They are not going to rip off my boss. I'm not going to let it happen. Mr. Geiger, I say urgently, could I see you for a minute, please, in private? Eddie looks up in annoyance. Samantha, he says with heavy humor, I'm in the middle of a rather important business here. Important to me, at any rate. He glances around the table, and all three men laugh sycophantically. It's very urgent, I say. It won't take long. Samantha, please, Mr. Geiger, I need to speak to you. At last, Eddie exhales in exasperation and puts down the pen. All right. He gets up and ushers me out of the room. What is it? He demands. I stare back at him dumbly. Now I've got him out here, I have no idea how to bring up the subject. What can I say? Mr. Geiger, I would recommend reviewing Clause 14. Mr. Geiger, your liabilities are not sufficiently protected. It's impossible. Who takes legal advice from their housekeeper? His hand is on the doorknob. This is my last chance. Do you take sugar? I blurt out. What? I couldn't remember. I mumble, and I didn't want to draw attention to your sugar consumption in public. Yes, I take 1 lump, says Eddie testily. Is that all? Well, yes, there was something else. It looks like you're signing some papers in there. That's right, he frowns. Private papers. Of course, I swallow. I was just remembering. You told me always to be very careful with legal documents. Eddie laughs jovially. You don't need to worry. I'm not a fool. I do have a lawyer. Yes, sir. I think quickly for another way. Only I couldn't help thinking of a time that Lady Edgerly signed up to some kind of investment, I think it was. And afterward she said to me that she wished she'd got a second opinion. I look into his eyes, willing the message to get through. Consult a decent lawyer, you stupid schmuck. Very thoughtful of you to be concerned, Samantha. Eddie gives me a pat on the shoulder, then opens the door and strides back in. Where were we, gentlemen? I watch in dismay as he picks up the pen again. He's going to get fleeced. But not if I can help it. Your coffee, Mr. Geiger, I murmur, hurrying into the room. I pick up the pot, start pouring, then accidentally on purpose drop it on the table. Jesus! There's total mayhem as the coffee spreads in a dark brown lake over the table, soaking into papers and dripping onto the floor. The contracts! Shouts Mr. Chiseled in annoyance. You stupid woman. I'm really sorry, I say in my most flustered voice. I'm really, really sorry. The coffee pot just slipped. I start mopping the coffee with a tissue, making sure to spread it over all the remaining paperwork. Do we have any copies? Asks the red-haired man, and I look up, alert. They were all on the bloody table, says Mr. Chiseled in exasperation. We'll have to get them printed out again. He looks at Eddie. Can you make tomorrow? Actually, Eddie clears his throat. Not tomorrow. I think I want a little more time. Just want to make sure it's all shipshape. Might even get another opinion to be on the safe side. No offense, Martin. None taken, says Martin amiably, reaching for a chocolate biscuit. The visitors exchange looks. Of course, says the chiseled-looking man after a long pause. No problem. Something tells me this deal may not be happening after all. Your jacket, sir, I say with a smile, handing it to him, and again I'm dreadfully, dreadfully sorry. The great thing about legal training is it really teaches you to lie. It also teaches you to put up with being yelled at by your boss, which is handy, because as soon as Trish hears what I've done, I'm forced to stand in the kitchen for 20 minutes while she strides around haranguing me. Mr. Geiger is putting together a very important business deal. That meeting was crucial. I'm very sorry, madam, I say, eyes downcast. I know you have no understanding of these things, Samantha, but a lot of money is at stake, money that you probably have no conception of. Stay calm, stay humble. A lot of money, Trish repeats impressively. She's itching to tell me more. I can see the urge to show it off, and the urge to remain discreet, fighting it out on her face. 7 figures, she says at last. Gosh, I do my best to look awestruck. We've been very good to you, Samantha. We made every effort. Her voice throbs with resentment, and we expect you to make every effort in return. I'm very sorry, I say for the millionth time, but Trish still seems dissatisfied. Well, I'll expect far more care tonight. Tonight? At dinner? Trish raises her eyes skyward. But I've got tonight off, I say in alarm. You said it would be okay. I could leave you a cold supper. Trish has clearly forgotten all about our conversation. Well, she says querulously, that was before you threw coffee over our guests. That was before you spent all morning sitting about having your hair done. What? That is so unfair. I can't even find a response. Frankly, Samantha, I expect a little better. You will stay in tonight and serve dinner. She picks up a magazine and strides out of the kitchen. I stare after her, a familiar heavy resignation creeping over me. This has happened so many times in my life, I'm used to it. I'll have to call off my date with Nathaniel. Another date, another cancellation. And then my thoughts stop mid-track. I'm not a Carter Spink anymore. I don't have to put up with this. I stalk out of the kitchen and find Trish in the living room. Mrs. Geiger, I say as forcefully as I can, I'm sorry about the coffee, and I'll make every effort to do better, but I have to have tonight off. I've made arrangements, and I'm going to stick to them. I'll be going out at 7 as planned. My heart is beating fast as I finish. I've never asserted myself like that before in my life. If I'd ever spoken like that at Carter Spink, I'd have been dead meat. For a moment, Trish looks livid. Then, to my astonishment, she gives an irritated click with her tongue and turns a page. Oh, very well, if it's that important. Yes, I swallow. It's important. My personal life is important. As I say the words, I feel stirred up. I almost want to say something more to Trish, something about priorities, about balance. But Trish is already engrossed in an article on the red wine diet, how it can work for you. I'm not sure she'd appreciate being disturbed. I'm putting the finishing touches to a cold roasted vegetable salad for the Geiger supper when Trish comes into the kitchen. She opens the fridge, peers into it, then closes the door, looking dissatisfied. She leans against the counter, watching me work until I start feeling twitchy. Can I get you anything, Mrs. Geiger? No, you just carry on. She picks up a vegetable pear and twirls it around in her hands. Mrs. Geiger, I gesture that I need the pear, and she hands it over with a tisk of irritation. You have such a simple life, Samantha, she says with a sigh, so untroubled. Yes, madam, I say after a pause, if you only knew. Trish moves to the window and gives another gusty sigh. Mr. Geyser will be out this evening, so you only need to make one cold supper. Right. I have the feeling that if I point out I've already made a salad for two, she'll bite my head off. She definitely looks out of sorts standing there, running her finger up and down the window pane. Maybe I should make conversation. Nathaniel told me that you used to run a business, Mrs. Geyser, I say, carving strips off a huge chunk of Parmesan. Road haulage? That must have been interesting. Oh, yes, it was our life. You must have worked hard, I prompt. We built it up from scratch, you know, Mr. Geyser and I. She suddenly looks animated. By the end, we had a staff of 30, contracts with every major supermarket chain in the country. You'll have seen our lorries on the road, red with a black flash. Those are yours? I feel a flash of genuine interest. I've seen them on the motorway. They were ours, corrects Trish. We were made an extremely generous offer a few years ago, which naturally we took. All the animation has waned from her voice. As I sprinkle torn basil over the plate, she gazes out the window again, her face rigid. And you don't ever think about doing another job, I venture? Samantha, says Trish in her explaining things to a 3-year-old voice, Mr. Geyser and I have made our money. I am fortunate enough not to need to work. No, of course not, I say deferentially. I grind black pepper onto the salad, remembering Trish's tears that day by the washing machine. I can't help feeling a bit sorry for her. She obviously has no idea what to do with her time. And Eddie doesn't help, being out on the golf course all day. You know, Lady Edgerly didn't have a job either, I say casually, as I put cling wrap over the salad dish and place it in the fridge. But of course she kept busy with her charity work. Charity work? Echoes Trish after a pause. What sort of charity work? All sorts. Fundraisers, charity lunches. She said if she hadn't had those to occupy her, she would have gone stir-crazy, doing nothing all day, except filing her nails and having her hair done. Though, obviously, it's nothing like you. I backtrack as Trish turns around. You've got, loads going on. Absolutely. Trish lifts her chin defensively. I have many interests and occupations. People envy me my full life, you know, Samantha. I'm sure they do, madam. It was just a thought. I bob a curtsy and head out of the kitchen. At the door, I glance back. Trish is still standing in exactly the same place.